Republican supporters and President Trump are being ridiculed, persecuted, and even prosecuted by Biden, congressional Democrats, and their radical prosecutors for raising questions about the accuracy of the 2020 election. This may be one of the most hypocritical acts in history, considering the Democrats have violently claimed that the last 3 Republican presidential wins were stolen, rigged, and illegitimate. And it was the Democrats who tried to stop the certification of a Republican president. We start with the 2000 election, where Democrats claimed it was Gore, not Bush, who won, and that the Republicans and their Supreme Court stole the election.
Bush versus Gore. A court took away a presidency.
If Al Gore won that election, I think he won it anyway.
No doubt in my mind that Al Gore was elected president.
Speaking to a Democratic group in Chicago Tuesday, he made it clear he thinks Al Gore was the winner.
By the time it was over, our candidate had won the popular vote, and the only way they could win the election was to stop the voting in Florida.
What I observed as a voter, as a citizen of Illinois 4 years ago, were troubling evidence of the fact that not every vote was being counted.
The Supreme Court selected George W. Bush as the president. He was not elected.
Catherine Harris, Jeb Bush, Jim Baker, and the Supreme Court hadn't tampered with the results, Al Gore would be president.
There is overwhelming evidence that George W. Bush did not win this election.
I don't think that George W. Bush won the election in 2000 against Al Gore, because I think he probably lost Florida and also nationwide.
The court has been thwarting formation of the popular will, the most spectacular example being Bush versus Gore, where the majority, by a 5-4 vote, enjoined the counting of more than 100,000 ballots in Florida and essentially gave America its first court-appointed president.
If all the votes were counted in Florida, that Al Gore would be president today and George Bush would be back in office.
After the election, when you stole the election, you came back here and said, get over it. No, we're not going to get over it.
I think I carried Florida. You know it, I know it, they know it.
Democrat members of Congress also refused to participate in the official certification of the election.
I rise to object to the fraudulent 25 Florida electoral votes.
I must object because of the overwhelming evidence of official misconduct, deliberate fraud.
It is signed by myself on behalf of my diverse constituents and the millions of Americans who have been disenfranchised by Florida's inaccurate vote count.
I come from Florida, where you and others participated in what I call the United States coup d'etat.
In 2004, the Republicans won again, and once again, the Democrats claimed the election was stolen.
We cannot declare that the election of November 2nd, 2004 was free and clear and transparent and real. There must be independent testing of the voting machines used in Ohio.
There were numerous irregularities in Ohio, including large percentages of rejections of provisional balloting, problems with voting machines.
I'm not confident that the election in Ohio was fairly decided. We know that there was substantial voter suppression, and the machines were not reliable.
Some machines malfunctioned, causing votes to be counted more than once, or not at all.
As we look at our election system, I think it's fair to say that there are many legitimate questions about its accuracy, about its integrity.
There are still legitimate concerns over the integrity of our elections.
The question, obviously, is how many instances were not caught that we don't know about. Number one, we've seen a lot of what I'll call honest glitches where it just didn't work right. But also that these machines are hackable. A dishonest employee of the vendor, or a dishonest employee of a local board of elections, or simply someone who knows electronics and has a computer at home, could hack into these machines and put in a secret instruction to disregard every 20th Democratic vote or add 10% to the carrier, to the Bush vote or whatever, and you might not ever know it.
Treating today's electoral vote count in Congress as a meaningless ritual would be an insult to our democracy unless we registered our own protest against the obviously flawed voting process that took place in so many of our states.
Voters who wish to cast a vote for president or vice president can't approach the polls with certainty that their vote will be counted.
Based upon an inordinate number of allegations suggesting gross voting rights violations and misconduct I join with my colleagues in objecting to counting the state of Ohio's electoral votes.
Among the Democrats who claimed the 2004 election was stolen was Democrat nominee John Kerry and his wife, Teresa Hines.
I arranged to meet Senator Kerry at a fundraiser to give him a copy of my book. He told me he now thinks the election was stolen.
The wife of John Kerry said she has lingering doubts about the legitimacy of the election. Her theory goes like this. Two brothers, she calls hard right Republicans, own 80% of the voting machines in the U.S. Therefore, it would be easy to hack into the mother machines that control the electronic voting.
In 2016, when President Trump was declared the winner on election night, the Democrats moved quickly to call the election stolen and illegitimate, including President Trump's opponent, Hillary Clinton.
Hillary Clinton apparently still not over her 2016 defeat to President Trump. She's now claiming the election was stolen from her.
You can run the best campaign. You can even become the nominee. And you can have the election stolen from you.
Trump knows he's an illegitimate president.
But there absolutely is a cloud of illegitimacy.
I don't see this president-elect as a legitimate president.
The president-elect, although legally elected, is not legitimate.
He's an illegitimate president in my mind.
Could you be my vice presidential candidate?
Folks, look, I absolutely agree.
So that legitimacy is in question, yes.
I have an objection.
There was a widespread understanding that this election was not on the level.
Some Democrats continued to promote the totally false narrative that President Trump had somehow conspired with the Russians.
The outcome of the election was affected by their interference, and now we need to know, to what degree, if any, the Trump campaign was actually in collusion with Russia.
How can you win with Russian interference, though?
That's
what I'm scared about in 2020.
But rightly.
Because I think he's an illegitimate president that didn't really win. So how do you fight against that in 2020?
You are absolutely right.
Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016. He lost the election, and he was put into office because the Russians interfered.
You said you believe that Russia's interference altered the outcome of the election.
I do.
The one thing that Trump is fearful of when it comes to his being president is that finally we will see how illegitimate his victory actually was.
Do you believe Trump is a legitimate president?
What I believe is that there's no question that the outcome of this election was affected by the Russian interference.
An independent investigation revealed that not only was this totally fabricated by the Democrats and Clinton operatives, but that Joe Biden was also complicit. The Democrats have also accused Republicans of stealing many other elections, including in Georgia. The very same place tainted Democrat Georgia prosecutor Fani Willis is now unfairly prosecuting President Trump for suggesting there was voter fraud.
I acknowledge that former Secretary of State Brian Kemp will be certified as the victor in the 2018 gubernatorial election. This is not a speech of concession.
And despite the final tally and the inauguration and the situation we find ourselves in, I do have one very affirmative statement to make. We won.
Without voter suppression, Stacey Abrams would be the governor of Georgia. Andrew Gillum is the governor of Florida.
If Stacey Abrams doesn't win in Georgia, they stole it. It's clear.
I think that Stacey Abrams' election is being stolen from her.
If she'd had a fair election, she already would have won.
Georgia voters did not have their votes counted. They were not allowed to cast votes. They had their votes discarded.
Reminder, she wrote, Brian Kemp stole the gubernatorial election from Georgians and Stacey Abrams.
It certainly gave the appearance of unfairness, and I think it was unfairness. Stacey ran a great campaign. She probably won.
She would be the governor of Georgia today had the governor of Georgia not disenfranchised 1.4 million Georgia voters before the election. That's what happened to Stacey Abrams. They took the votes away.
Notably, did not concede.
I did not.
Okay, you acknowledged that he won, but you did not concede.
Correct.
5 months later, do you still feel like your opponent won through voter suppression?
Yes.
Many in America are asking why President Trump is being prosecuted for doing the very same thing Democrats like Biden and Hillary have done. And the answer is very simple. Like a third world corrupt dictator, Biden will use any means necessary to stop the one Republican he knows he can't beat.
How can you win with Russian interference, bro?
Not be a legitimate president.
He's an illegitimate president.
He's an illegitimate president.
Russia's interference.
They stole it. It's clear.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.